This is a focus panel, so the FinOps open cost and usage specification. And if you have questions, we are expecting hopefully get some questions and do some live answering. But if not, we got some questions and I'll help facilitate. So I'm Larry again, Fred FinOps from Cloud Zero. I'm a TAC member and a focus maintainer. Alexandra.
Hi, I'm Alexandra McCoy. I am a new contributor to the Focus Project, and I'm also a consultant that's focused on integrating SRE practices for strategic alignment.
Hi, I'm Michael Flanagan. I am at Salesforce now. I just recently started working on FinOps tools internally there. I've been working on Focus since pretty much since the beginning, and yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm Andrew Quigley. I'm with Northwestern Mutual, where I'm the FinOps lead. I've been using Focus since 0.5 and been with the project a couple months, 10 months-ish, I think.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for the introductions. We'll kick off with the first question here. So over to Alexandra. What advice for someone who wants to contribute but feels intimidated? What advice do you have for somebody who wants to contribute but feels intimidated about joining?
I would offer the advice that Focus is not a specific tool. It's a specification that has the responsibility of just standardizing lingo that's important to communicate business value. So I would tell that person not to be intimidated by that, but take inventory of what your area of expertise is and contribute that way. So for me, I have a background in infrastructure and more on the engineering side, and I'm not directly tied to billing data or cost, but I know that's something that as a contributor on a team and within an organization, something that we need to be a bit more mindful of when we're trying to build with efficiency and resiliency. So for me, it's how can I educate myself on this? And then if you have a background in, let's say, infrastructure or DevOps or any other technical area, how can you leverage your own expertise and skill set and contribute it to the project in that way?
All right, Michael, you want to
I
jump
think
in there
that's great.
too?
Yeah. I was going to say, I think that's definitely great. You definitely want to come in and expect to, bring in the skill set that you have and the experience that you have, but also, you know, one of the things for those of us that spend a lot of time on Focus, it really does feel like an extended family, and I know it can be daunting, especially when you join a first call and you'll see a few of us really going head to head, just diving super deep into some of these topics where you're just trying to figure out what's going on. If you have questions, reach out to somebody on Slack and just ask questions. Everybody's really there willing to help, and everybody wants to make everybody successful. So if you have questions and you're just looking to, even just if it's just to understand what's going on, you want more context, you want to figure out how you can contribute in a space, if there's something you're passionate about, just ask. Everybody's really friendly and just wants to help. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, if I could chime in quick,
Please.
a lot of effort went into reshaping the onboarding process very recently. So it's going to be easier. Now's a better time than ever to join up if you want to contribute. And I would say, like, if you're technically if you think that's a hurdle, we know as FinOps practitioners that we are a diverse group. We all have different backgrounds, and there are different personas that we have to cater to. And the more diversity in those personas we can get in the Focus project, the stronger the spec is going to be. So please join up if you want to.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew, for calling out the mentoring and the onboarding process enhancements. And we got a lot of feedback, and we've been working to make that hopefully a bit easier, right? And partnering up people together to be successful. The next question I've got for the panel is, what emerging cloud cost management challenge do you think Focus should tackle next? And Michael, we'll go over to you first.
Let's see. Honestly, there's especially with my previous role, kind of leading the FinOps portfolio at Microsoft, there's a lot of things that I've heard from people and that I see that are necessary to be done. But honestly, the big thing that I want to understand is more from the audience here. Uh, like, what are the things that y'all want to see? Because, and the reason why I say that, I don't mean to dodge the question, but the reason why I say that is because the biggest thing that I feel like we're missing in Focus is more voice of practitioners. And that's actually a big part of why I moved to Salesforce, is to get a deeper understanding of that, because at Microsoft it was fairly disconnected. Lots of conversations, but they're small conversations, and didn't really get a whole lot of depth there. So I really want to hear more from practitioners, and this kind of comes to joining the Focus conversations. I really want to know what it is that practitioners need to make their lives better, and what does it take to adopt Focus? Like, how can we make that easier for you? Because that adoption, I think, is like really that first hurdle, and that's the biggest thing that I think that we need to be focusing on up front, I would say.
Yeah,
I'd love
like
to
that
see if anybody does have questions, if they just like raise their hand or something, so I can call on you to
right.
be able to.
Happy to jump in. I'd have people jump in.
Yeah.
So there's
I think that's a fair response, given your closeness to the project and how long you've been on it. But as a newbie, who's been on the cloud native side and shifting my attention to AI with all of the rapid development and talk about multi-agents and agentic AI, you see a lot of organizations that are increasing their carbon footprint. And I think it's AWS who has like carbon accounting metrics or something like that. So I think it would be really cool with the expansion of data centers if, there were some considerations in the data set surrounding sustainability.
Yeah, this was actually one big one that came up, and we spun up a user group to dig into that, to get a better definition of what does that mean. Is that a different data sets, or is it getting included in the same data set that we have? And there's some interesting aspects and challenges either way that you
Questions
go
that need
there.
answers.
Yeah. And I think some of those are kind of critical for being able to execute on that. But yeah, actually, that's one thing that comes to mind for that. If there's things like this that you want to see, and there's specific ways that you'd like to see them being done, there's an issue tracker that we have for Focus, and you can go and kind of get your voice heard, at least in small ways, to say, this is what my expectations are when it comes to something like adding sustainability.
It's a good call out.
Also, one other thing, I casually mentioned something that many people probably don't know yet, but one of the things, and I've been a big proponent of this over time, one of the things that we're starting to look at in 1.3 which is the next version that's coming out, is adding additional data sets. And there's a lot of different data sets that we can add. You can think of like having a SKU category, or categorization, SKU catalog, sorry, that was the word I was looking for, separate from the actual cost and usage data. Recommendations are one. Sustainability is a question, should that be separate or together? Things like that. Specifically, I think the two that are coming up first are going to be a separate data set for invoices and contract commitments, I think are the two first ones that you'll see.
So we did receive one comment on this in the Q&A. Michael, I'll be interested about your perspective, given where you were, previously with Microsoft. The comment was, we'd like to extend focus further to be near feature parity, like any other CSP proprietary format. What challenges with that?
That is one of the biggest things that I've always wanted, and we haven't actually gotten into what our interests are in and why we joined Focus. But just to throw this out, excuse me, Microsoft has like 5 different data formats that they give customers, depending on the type of agreement you have and whatnot. I had tried to standardize that, and it was so much of a challenge and uphill battle. Once I heard about Focus, I was like, this is the chance to make that happen. And that's why I spend so much time on Focus, is to be able to make that happen. And we had a lot of success from it. There's a 40% adoption rate of Focus, at least, up until I left. And one of my big things that I definitely was pushing for when I was on the steering committee was being able to see as many columns from the native cloud data sets get included in Focus. Because I think that the more coverage that we have there, especially when the concepts are the same, the better things will be. We do have challenges as capacity. And I think a big part of that is the level of participation that we have in Focus. So just to call out, if anybody has any capacity to come in and help, like, that would help us make a lot more progress. But I think that's really the limiting factor, is a lot of work is put onto a relatively small set of people. And so it's hard to churn through those things. But I totally agree, and I totally want to see that for sure. Actually, one other thing, sorry.
And
No, go ahead.
and
Go ahead.
just to piggyback off of what you just said, again, that's a good opportunity to leverage, especially for like engineers and developers and programmers. That's an opportunity to leverage your skill sets and contribute to the broader industry. In addition to that, if you're, I come from the multi-cloud side, so if I'm speaking of the Focus project and the specification, it's from the perspective of someone that's interested in consolidating and aggregating that data across cloud providers. So if you're someone that's also interested in that and you don't have a background in the FinOps space, also take a look at the learn.finops.org website. And there's plenty of certifications and a lot of good material that'll introduce you to the frameworks that are applicable and help you advocate for FinOps within your organization if you believe in initiative. And I joined a couple of months ago. I don't know if this changed, but at the time there was no entry point for individual contributors. It's more so if your organization is involved in the community. So that will be another avenue for individual contributors to take the specification, align it to the products in your organization, and then advocate internally and take ownership of getting your organization involved in the community.
Good. And you mentioned your multi-cloud experience. That's actually one thing I was going to say as well, is like, if you have multi-cloud experience, that would be immensely useful. So
Agreed, 100%. So along those lines, we've talked about it a little bit off and on here. I want to get into like what drew us all to Focus and how have you adopted it? Now, Andrew, I'll kick it over to you first, because I understand you've got an interesting story from all the way from 0.5, version 0.5, which is almost 2.5 years ago. So you want to jump in there and give your 2 cents?
Yeah, for sure. Funny enough, 2.5 years ago, I found myself drafted into the FinOps team at Northwestern Mutual. I was a cloud engineer before that, didn't really think about FinOps too much. So I got drafted in. First order of business was to start ingesting cost data. And in order to do that, we crawl the curve, blah, blah, blah. But where does it go? And what does it look like? And then I find out about this Focus thing. And I'm like, hey, I don't have to like even think about this. I'll just do this. There's a standard coming. It's 0.5, but it's a standard, and multi-cloud is an issue for folks. Like I know, like FinOps, especially 2.5 years ago, was quite the buzzword, and now it has snowballed into where it is now, and it just keeps growing. So a standard is like, I knew a standard was needed. I knew I had to build this thing, so I'm like, I'll just build it around this standard. They already did the work for me. So me and my team did that, and we used it through 1.0-ish, but then our practice kind of grew faster than Focus did. So we changed our internal format to be what those of us on the project lovingly call Focus. So what that means is as close to Focus as possible, but we change it to fit our own needs. So that's when I started looking at joining the project, because there were features I needed that weren't in there. So I'm like, I'll go, I don't know, go upvote some feature requests, play some feature requests. So I did that, and I saw, some of the ones I was upvoting and weren't getting pulled in. So then I joined the project. I figured, well, if you want to get it done, do it yourself. So I joined the project, and now I'm doing that. I'm just adding the features that I needed, and as well as pulling in features I didn't even know I needed that are being suggested by the community. So the project, like 1.3, I'm like thrilled about. Like I can use 1.3 now. Like when cloud adopters start supporting it, I can start using it. So the repo is public. You can go see why I'm excited by looking there, and it'll be announced when it's announced.
Are there any recommendations, Andrew, you would make, having been through this journey, right, where you had others like using this format, generating data in this format? Is there any recommendations you'd say for folks that are using it like how you did? Tips, tricks, anything like that?
Yeah, for sure. When I got started, I really was apprehensive about diverting from the standard. I don't even know why. I think some folks would just say, screw it, I'll add whatever I want. But I was very apprehensive about it because I wanted the standard to stay a standard. So make adjustments as needed, like make your data set Focus if Focus as it is doesn't work for you. And yeah, I don't know that I have any advice beyond that. It makes sense. It all makes sense. I'm like,
just to add to that, one thing that I think it gets lost a bit is the goal of Focus is not to get everybody to build an ETL pipeline that ingests Focus data. That's not the goal. That will definitely accelerate you getting to the goal. But the ultimate goal is really about having a consistent language that any FinOps practice, any stakeholder within your organization already understands, so that when they come in and they look at your data, like you could bring in somebody that already understands this from another organization. They should be able to come in, and since they already understand the language of Focus, that when they start looking at your tools, and it doesn't matter how the data gets into the tools, but when they start looking at your tools, they understand the language and they know how to communicate. And then you can have intelligent conversations about what the priorities are and what to do next. That's really what the goal of Focus is. So when we talk about the idea of Focus, it's kind of like a lot of organizations have already built up a platform for ingesting data, or maybe they're using third-party tools. Many people use a mix of third-party and custom, and whatever it is. The idea is an initial step might not be go rebuild all your pipelines. An initial step might be, in this report where you're publishing out to your stakeholders, maybe you just go tweak the words that you use to align to the Focus words. And that's what we mean when we say focus. It's like focus. It's inspired by focus. You're not quite ready to make the massive investment to go change all the pipelines that you've had for years, and that's okay. But the closer that you get, the more you can start having those conversations with consistent terminology, and then you won't have people in theory, you won't have people in finance and engineering using different terms to mean different things, and really just kind of leaning in on that ultimate goal of being able to speak the same language.
Michael's comment just reminded me of a key component to my story that I forgot about while I was rambling earlier. Because we built it in Focus and we want to ingest Focus format as much as possible, so we're not making a special unicorn ETL job for each and every file we bring in. One of the challenges that just about any FinOps practitioner has is allocating cost for internal platforms. So like, yeah, AWS sends us a bill, Microsoft sends us a bill, but maybe the database department does not send us a bill. The logging and observability does not send us a bill. So right now, they do send us a bill. Well, they don't send us a bill, but they send us usage metrics that we can allocate to the right cost centers. So, and they do that by sending us data in Focus format. They send us the data, the usage data in Focus format, which we can then join with the cost data. So yeah, it's in a language that like Michael said. So since it's consistent, doesn't matter which team I go to, they can look at it and know what it is. Even our finance department, it's so simple, even a finance person can understand it.
Love it. Love it. So Alexander, over to you. What got you into Focus in the first place?
I'm embarrassed to say this, but I don't I don't really remember. I think it was an accident accident. But in my journey of investigating something else, I ran across the Focus project and was already interested in getting into FinOps a little bit more. So initially, when I ran across the website, I noticed the certification courses and immediately took them just to see what the framework was and what the alignment was from the business side and the technology side. And I'm like, oh, I'm glad someone is paying attention to this and giving it visibility. So then when I ran into the GitHub repository, I'm like, oh, there's a whole specification around this. And initially I thought it was a tool. But I understand it's not a tool, and to get to the tooling aspects of it, we have to start out with making sure that organizations are on the same page and in alignment with one another from an industry perspective. So it was just something that I agree with and that I believe is needed at this time. And I know there's been other talks in this session that have talked about FinOps needing to keep up, and not necessarily in a bad way, but we have to, assess things accurately and take that constructive criticism. And I think this is like a really good starting point for organizations to move faster. And, coming from the SRE side, whenever we're thinking of alerting and monitoring, it's how do we know that we can set up and configure the alerting and monitoring as much as we want to, but how do we know whether or not we're alerting and monitoring the right things in the right way, in the right points, or touch points within our systems? So I think of, so in that instance, observability is the solution. So here I think of it I try to compare it and contrast it to that. In order for us to build out cloud billing data in a way that organizations can move faster, that engineering and product teams can move more efficiently, we have to first make sure that there's a specification and a standard in place. So
Love it. I had a similar, I'll say, origin story coming across it a little more than about 2.5 years ago, right before 0.5 was released, where I was on one of the community calls and it just popped up right out of nowhere. I'm like, oh, this is really great. This is an awesome opportunity. I worked on oil and gas data pipelines back in the 2000s. So it's very similar type of work, and it's like I I could join this. Like, I get this. This is really cool. This is really awesome stuff.
Yeah. And I think both stories also speak to the community aspect. What I think
Yeah.
Mike was saying about the relationship between everyone. I think the fact that you don't remember, you don't really care, you just, agree or believe with the mission of the project and are allowed to just jump in and start contributing in a way that's meaningful to you. I think that speaks to the culture of the project as well.
Yeah, love it. We have another question in chat here. So Ricardo's wondering, and I have an opinion on it. Michael, because you worked at Microsoft previously, I wonder what you would say about it too. But the question is that when Focus is updated, like AWS, Microsoft, etc., updates their format from say 1.0 to 1.3, 1.4, will they still have the, is it an in-place upgrade or is it separate and you have to move things over yourself? I did try to ping AWS here on the side live when that question came up about 5-10 minutes ago. I haven't heard back yet, but I'm guessing based off of their strategy with the Cur 1.0 and 2.0 that they'll still maintain like a Focus 1.0 for some period of time and then deprecate it, and it won't happen in place. That's Fred's 2 cents on it. But Michael, I assume you thought about that at some point as well. So
yeah, so for AWS specifically, I think this is ultimately a question of what each provider is going to do and how they choose to do it. Because I think historically, if we look at how, and I don't know enough about GCP, so I can't really comment on them, but from what I've heard about AWS, they have a tendency to just keep adding columns, and you just kind of have to, you just got to take it. This is what I've heard. I don't historically have a whole lot of experience with that, and I haven't gotten into that stuff at Salesforce yet. But my understanding is that with the new exports platform, I think the intent there is to make it so that you can opt into the things that you care about, so that nothing would be shoved into your bucket without you opting into it. That's my understanding. I think the best way to get this answer really is to talk to AWS. But that being said, my expectation would absolutely be that if you're configuring an export, you should never get anything that you didn't ask for. Unless you were explicitly asked for, give me all the things that could ever show up, in which case, then yes, I could imagine how that would change. But I think that's a dangerous thing to ask for. So I don't know if that's even an option. So my expectation is that when they ship, whether it's support for 1.2 or 1.3, which I do know that we're working on, I don't have any timelines or anything like that, but my expectation is that you would have to opt into the next version. For Microsoft, I can definitely say that you do have to opt in. They have 3 versions out right now. Is that right? Yeah, I think 3 versions out right now. Maybe 4. Anyways, whatever. They've got multiple versions out right now, and you do have to opt into them when you're ready to take on that next one. And the reason for this is because for Microsoft specifically, Microsoft releases all the columns. Everything that they have is available in Focus. Focus is actually the best data set that you'd get from Microsoft today. It's not necessarily the same case with AWS and GCP. They don't provide all the data, or even OCI, and I think Tencent also implemented. They don't provide all the data in their Focus feed, which is a bit of a challenge. But in the Microsoft one, all the data is there. When you switch, which introduces a challenge, because then when you switch from 1.0 to 1.2, there you'll see columns like invoice ID, which was X_invoice ID in 1.0, and it's now invoice ID in 1.2. This is important because obviously anything that you're doing with those columns that have been renamed, those queries will have to be updated, and whatever processing that you have around those columns will have to be updated. So I think it's very important for that to be an opt-in gesture, not just something that just gets shoved down your throat.
When I saw that question come in, I was really hoping we'd be able to get it, and I'm glad we did, because that's such an interesting topic and very timely considering where things are moving right now. Michael covered just about every point I would have made, but I would say if if your provider is not providing the version of focus you need, let them know. Like, just let them know. That's the best way to get the latest and greatest out there. And also, if you don't like the way that they're giving it to you, or that you're consuming the newer version or migrating, let them know that too. Every major provider has a seat in the project at every level, and they're in there advocating for their customers. So you let them know, they let us know.
Yeah, the thing that drives them is direct customer feedback, not anything from us. As part of Focus, at least. I can't tell you how many times I've sat down and had conversations with AWS and GCP when I was at Microsoft about the things I wanted to see them do and change. But the voice of the customer is like 100x more important than anything that we could tell them.
Yep. Thank you, Michael, for the in-depth there, and Andrew as well. We've chewed up all of our time here. Greatly appreciate all three of you for joining in this as well, and for Victor for having us here. If you've got questions, please engage with the focus group either through the website focus.finops.org. It's really easy to join. There is a CLA component, that sort of thing. Please hit me up. I can assist you through as the Focus ambassador, or one of them, and happy to have more people involved. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for
Thanks
having
all of
me.
you for this wonderful panel.